test lecture series, Colloquium 2021-2022. Mr. Nitin has done his graduation from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and is also an alumnus of IIM Lucknow, the institute which mentored us during our early years. He is an entrepreneur and a professional with over 25 years of rich industrial experience in the area of finance, consulting, management, and operations. Prior to Instedo, Nitin was the Chief Operating Officer, that is COO of Flipkart, where he was responsible for customer and supply chain operations, strategy to execution capabilities, and corporate functions for the company. Also, he has been associated with NASSCOM Regional Council, that is NRC Haryana, as a chairperson, where he led the IT BPO industry, representing over 150 companies. Today, he will be addressing us on the topic Winning in the Digital Age, which is also his title of his book. So we all welcome you, Mr. Nitin, and with all your permissions, I would hand over to you to take ahead the session.
Thanks, Roshan. Thanks for the warm introduction. So we have a big topic today, winning in the digital age. I will get started without further ado. So I'll share my screen. Okay. So digital age, we are, if there was a way of describing the times we are living in the 21st century, digital age would perhaps be an appropriate way of describing the times we are in. It is impacting all aspects of our life, the way we consume products and services. Going for movies has basically meant now switching on Netflix or Amazon Prime. Shopping means Flipkart or Zomato or Amazon or whatever. So every aspect of our lives, interaction means Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram or new social media platforms keep on evolving. All aspects of our life have become digital. And as a result, every industry is going through digital transformation, and every enterprise that I know of is adopting digital in some way. Now, some industries and some companies may be more mature, more advanced, some may be more nascent, but there is no industry which is untouched by digital transformation. And hundreds of billions of dollars is being spent on digital globally. So the estimates are that over the next 3 years, over $6 trillion is going to be spent globally on digital, okay, $6 trillion. So just to give you a sense of that scale, of that number, India's GDP is a little north of $2 trillion. Yeah. So the amount that is being spent on digital globally is 3 times India's GDP, just to give you a sense of the scale we are talking about. That is the scale of the opportunity. And clearly when that kind of capital is being spent, it creates tremendous set of opportunities for entrepreneurs, opportunities for professionals, and especially for young professionals like you. So that is why it is very important for everybody to understand about digital. Yeah. But there is a twist in the tail. There is a twist in the tail that 70% of digital transformation initiatives do not achieve their full impact. And that's a very, it's perhaps a conservative number. That real number is probably closer to 80%. So just think about it, trillions of dollars being spent. Yeah. And just do the math, 70% of that being wasted. It's a humongous thing. And this gap between the potential and the reality is something which has always intrigued me. And that is why I wrote this book, Winning in the Digital Age, because I was very fortunate that my career has coincided with the rise of the digital age. Yeah, that once I left After my MBA, I joined McKinsey in 1996. That was really the beginning of the dot-com era. And I was involved in a lot of the initial dot-com work, internet work that happened in India. I left McKinsey, did a startup of my own. It was a dot-com startup. That really bombed very badly. I went back to McKinsey. I set up analytics, led McKinsey's knowledge center for a number of years. Then I joined Fidelity Investments, which is one of the world's largest investment management firms as the CEO for India, but was also heading strategy for Fidelity globally, and which was really a digital strategy, trying to transform the business digitally. And then I realized that the large companies have a very tough time in this new world, and I wanted to be at the cutting edge of technology. That's when I joined Flipkart as the chief operating officer, and that was at the cutting edge of chaos. Very different world than McKinsey and Fidelity. And then after Flipkart, now I'm running my own firm in Cedo, which is focused on digital transformation, working with some of the largest companies in the world, mostly Fortune 100 companies here in the United States. Yeah, so I just wanted to set the context for you that digital is such a massive opportunity. There is this 70% failure rate happening, and that is really what I have tried to address in the book. And we have short time today, and I will share some of the key insights with you. Yeah. Now, what really is this digital age? It is also often called the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah, fourth industrial revolution. From mechanizing production to mass production and electric power to the third industrial revolution, which we have gone through, which is the information age. Now, this digital age, guys, keep your videos on and audios off, okay? Videos on, audios off. Thank you. Now, the fourth industrial revolution or the digital age, it brings together a number of technologies which have already been developing. So the fourth digital age is really about the convergence of number of major technology trends. Yeah. So there are four that I would like to call out. There is the rise of devices, that today we have over 25 billion devices globally. In the world population, human population is 6-7 billion. So you can see that the number of devices are way more than the human population, and they have exploded over the last 10-15 years, and they are going to double again over the next 5 years. Yeah, data, the volume, velocity, variety of data has exploded. Storage capacity has really grown beyond belief, and the computing power. Yeah, so these are the four very significant technology trends. Yeah, the devices, the data, storage capacity, and computing power, which are combining, which are growing, which are exploding, and they're converging. Yeah, to create this tipping point effect or a volcano effect, and which is the digital age. Now, it may seem like that a lot has already happened in the digital age, but if I look at the overall perspective, this is still early days for the digital age. So I will use a sports analogy here. So think of this as a 5-test match series of 5-day matches, and we're still at lunch of day one of the first test match. Yeah. So while already till lunch, there is a lot of action that is happening, but as the famous, phrase from a Hindi movie, that kahani abhi baki hai. There is a lot still to play out, yeah, in this digital age. Now, one of the characteristics of the digital age is that there is no middle ground. Either you win big. There are tremendous opportunities for value creation, building new businesses, scaling up businesses very rapidly, or you fail also very, very, very sharply. Yeah, there is no middle ground. Now, as at least my generation, we have always been trained that don't take too many risks, middle ground. Yeah. Whereas in the digital age, there is no middle ground. The biggest risk in the digital age is not taking risks. is not taking risks. Yeah. So if you look at the winners like Apple and Amazon, they are each one of them is now worth like $2 trillion, which is equal to India's GDP. So these, you just think about it, that these companies themselves are as big as one of the most the second most populated country on earth. They are bigger than most of the countries on earth. Yeah, just look at their size, and they are not very old companies. Tesla, very young company, and is now worth more than the top 10 automobile manufacturers combined. Yeah, and these are great companies like Toyota, Honda, General Motors, Mercedes Benz, BMW, Volvo, Volkswagen. Tesla is worth more than all of them combined. Combined, yeah, that's the scale of what we are talking about. At the same time, there are so many companies which seemed invincible, which have just lost out. Nokia, for my generation, a mobile phone meant Nokia. That is it was synonymous. And not too far back, maybe 13, 14 years back, Fortune carried this famous cover page that who can ever beat Nokia? And lo behold, just in a few years, Nokia was completely Nokia. Yeah. Or you look at retail industry here in the United States, that it was defined by the likes of Sears and Kmart, and now all you see are empty, like ghost buildings. Okay, ghost buildings, huge malls, huge outlets, which are empty. Yeah. So that's one of the very interesting aspects of the digital age, the gap between the winners and the losers. Yeah. Now let's investigate that a little more. Why is that happening? Yeah. These companies like Nokia and Sears are not bad companies by any stretch of imagination. They don't have they have run by pretty, very competent, very experienced management teams. Why did they stumble so much? Yeah. Now, my assessment is that the main issue why we see the legacy companies struggling so much in the digital age, and also such a high rate of failure on digital, is because the fundamentals of the digital age are very different, and many people have not grasped that fully. Yeah, they're approaching things still at a very surface level, whereas things are changing very deeply. Again, I'll take a cricket analogy, that you are a great cricket player, but you have played 5-day test matches all your life, and suddenly you are thrown into T20. Yeah, suddenly you're Chiteshwar Pujara. You are a great, very competent, one of the world's best test batsmen, and now you're thrown into T20. What will happen? It's a different game. It may look similar, but it's a very different game, and that is what is happening to businesses today. Yeah, they are struggling to adapt with a very, very changing landscape. Now let's investigate that. How is this world different? How is this world different? Now, all my years of being in this digital space in various ways, the concept that I feel best describes the characteristics of the digital age is a concept called VUCA: volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Volatile means it's changing in a very, very unpredictable, dynamic fashion. So if you've ever seen a stock market ticker, some of you here maybe majoring in finance, may have interest in stock markets. So if you see how a stock market ticker goes, it goes zoo, 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 zoo. It goes in a very, very up and down, ragged fashion. That is volatile. Uncertain. The outcomes are very uncertain. You don't know that how it is going to go. It's very difficult to predict the future. Uncertain. Complex. The cause effect relationships are very difficult to establish. It's not 2 plus 3 equal to 5. Yeah. The outcomes are a very complex, multivariable, probabilistic type of equation. It's so complex that you can't even define that equation most times. And ambiguous. Reality is hazy. It's like a glass mirror which is covered with a thick suit of dust. You can see, but not very clearly. You see a hazy picture. Yeah. So VUCA, it may seem like a very once I describe it, it may seem like a simplistic concept, but if you reflect on it deeply, it describes very, very well the world we are in. Yeah. By the way, the whole COVID that has hit us over the last year and a half is completely VUCA, isn't it? It's been very volatile, uncertain, complex, very, very VUCA. And that is the nature of the world we are in. Yeah, that is the nature of the digital world we are in. And it's very important that you internalize it. Now, let's move to a next level. Let's move to a little more of a practical, tangible level. And I want to share with you 6 themes or 6 mega trends, which are really shaping the digital age, which are very different about this digital age. The first is the customer. The first is the customer. The customer is customer expectations are very, very high. Whatever may be the industry, the customer expectations are now defined by the Amazon and Netflix experience. There are a lot of choices. There's a lot of product proliferation. So therefore, the customer has a very high switching behavior, has very low loyalty. Yeah, has very low loyalty. Yeah, so the customer is very different. Customer was always king, but in the digital age, it is God. It is God. It is the main axis, which drives everything. Technology. For most of you, that would be very intuitive. That technology is at the center of the business. Technology was a support function, and then technology became an enabler. And historically, you would define your business strategy, and then your technology needs would follow from that. But we are in a very different world where your business is being defined by technology, and your business strategy is really coming from your technology capabilities. Velocity, the speed of everything is exploding. Yeah, it's exploding. So business always moves in cycles. It moves up, it moves down. Business cycles used to be, depending on the industry, sometimes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Yeah, and you time your investments accordingly. And within any business cycle, you have a lot of product cycles. So if a business cycle used to be 20 years, it's no less than 10 years. If a product cycle used to be 7, 8 years, it's not 2, 3 years. So the velocity of everything is exploding, and therefore we have to really move at speed. Data, I already talked about it. The volume, velocity, variety of data is exploding. It's a different. It's not even in the same frame. It's a beyond a logarithmic scale or exponential scale. The way data is exploding, and it is changing the fundamentals of business. Yeah. Now, if you were to say that every company now needs to be a technology company, it is also fair to say that every company now needs to be a data company. Now, if you look at massive companies like Google and Facebook, and you say, okay, what is their main asset? What is their main asset? What is it that they really own and they are trying to monetize? Why are they worth hundreds of billions, in some cases trillions of dollars? What is it? It is data. Yeah, it is data, which is why they are worth so much. Yeah. Iterative, a little bit of a complex concept, but very important in this digital age. The world that existed earlier and the foundation for a lot of the management theory and principles that, can you go on mute, please? Thank you. A lot of the management theory and principles that you would be reading in IIM is based on a sequential view of the world. Okay, that you understand the situation, the forces at work. Based on that, you make strategy, and then you make a plan to execute on the strategy, and then you have the execution. Completely wrong in the digital world. A digital world does not move in a step-by-step fashion. It is very iterative. You do some things work, some things fail, and based on that, you go into a feedback loop. You go into a feedback loop. Yeah, it's not like a straight line, it's a circle. It's like a wheel that keeps on moving, which has a very, very big implication on a lot of management principles and approaches. And finally, interdisciplinary. The problems in this digital age are mostly interdisciplinary, because what is driving everything is the customer who's driving everything. For the customer, it's not a sales problem or a marketing problem or a product problem or a manufacturing problem. For them, a problem is a problem, which typically requires multiple different perspectives, yeah, interdisciplinary. And, and that is the nature of the world, that is the nature of knowledge, that is the nature of a lot of what needs to be done, which is not easy because most traditional companies are organized in a functional structure. So I will stop here now, as you may have realized as I'm going through it, that these are very big changes for the world. Yeah, and you have to really internalize, you have to really reflect on it to really then formulate your approach for digital, that how whether it is at an enterprise level, you make your strategy of winning in the digital age, or whether it is at an individual level. Now, let me briefly talk about it. It's a big topic, and I've written a 550-page book on that. So I encourage all of you to read it. But this whole topic of digital transformation is a very large. There are a number of things that need to be done. It's a very large and complex battlefield. Now, what happens is that most people look at a part of it, and they say, okay, this is what digital means. So for some, it may be about digital marketing. For some, it may be about setting up a website or app. For some, it may be about, it's about AI or cloud or blockchain, and that's what digital means, or cryptocurrency. Digital means all of that and more. Again, I will take an analogy, that of the six blind men in a room with that elephant, that somebody touches the tail, somebody touches the leg, somebody touches the trunk, and they feel, this is the reality. This is what it is. But all of that are true, but all of them are part of the whole picture, which often gets missed out. So now for digital transformation, for successful digital transformation, there are 7 building blocks that I believe are necessary. This still is not comprehensive. There could still be more. Yeah. So the first building block is about new rules of business, which is what we've been talking about. Given that a lot of the fundamentals are different in the digital age, it means that you need to have a new set of rules. Yeah. So for example, strategy leading to execution. No, that is incorrect. These are iterative. Yeah. They feed into each other. Yeah. Building block number 2, which is industry maturity curves. Now, as you start your digital transformation journey, the first and foremost thing to understand is what is happening to my customer, what is happening to my industry, and therefore, what do I need to do? And it's not easy, because in the digital age, even defining who your customer is and what industry you're playing in is not easy. Yeah. So that is a very necessary starting point, understanding your industry. And most times it's not enough just to understand the industry dynamics. You have to shape them. Yeah, you have to shape them. Building block number 3 is about digital technologies. Of course, this entire digital age has been sparked. The root of it is technology. So digital technologies, from customer experience to data science to AI, cloud, blockchain, IoT, all of them are at the heart of this change. Yeah, and how How do I leverage digital technologies in the best possible way? Now, the key point I would make here is that, while technology is at the heart, one of the biggest mistakes that enterprises make and leaders make is assuming that digital transformation is about technology programs. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Technology is one aspect of the entire change that organizations need to go through. Yeah. Building block number 4 is about a global delivery model. Digital by its very nature cannot happen in a silo. Cannot happen in a silo. The moment you set up a website, it is globally available. Yeah. So both from a market perspective and also from a delivery perspective, you need to think globally. You need to have a global value chain. You need to have a global delivery model. Building block number 5 is around organization transformation. Yeah, that how the organization needs to change. We already talked about some aspects, interdisciplinary. That is not how organizations are structured. Yeah, they are structured in a very functional manner. How do you build cross-functional teams to effectively solve the customer problems? Moving at speed. The larger the organization, slower it will move. Yeah, how do you move at speed? Organization transformation is probably the biggest of the building blocks here. Yeah. Now, so far, the 5 building blocks that I have introduced to you are from an enterprise perspective. Now, let's look at it from an individual perspective. Leadership. The model of leadership in the digital age needs to be very different. The era of the managers is gone. Manager was about a defined set of things, and then you execute on that. Now, in a world which is so dynamic, you don't have defined set of things. Yeah. So it has to be about creation, about defining, and that is what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur is not just somebody who does a startup, is somebody who creates. Yeah, and to create, you have to take risks. You cannot create without taking risks. Yeah. So a very different model of leadership. And finally, next generation talent, all of you, that how the expectations from talent are different and what the talent needs to do to succeed. And I think there are a phenomenal set of opportunities because this digital age is the age of abundance. My generation grew up in an age of scarcity. Yeah. And so with very limited set of choices and limited mindset, but this is an age of abundance, which creates very different set of opportunities. So I have very quickly, I'll pause now. I will stop sharing so that I can really, we can have a conversation. I can address a question, but very quickly, I have tried to cover some of the key points of what this digital age is, why this big gap between success and failure, why that is happening. That is because the enterprises are not fully able to deal with the fundamental shifts that are happening. We talked about some of the fundamental shifts. Talked about. Thank you. The fundamental shifts that are happening, we talked about it, the VUCA concept, the 6 shifts, and then we talked about, okay, how do you approach digital transformation, which is really the entire book, the 7 building blocks. So let me pause now, and I would love to hear your questions, would love to hear your thoughts. So Roshan, over to you. I believe you have some questions have already come in, but equally feel free to either unmute yourself and ask questions, or you can ask questions in the chat box.
Sure, sir. So one question which we have collected already was, like, how do organizational capabilities and culture need to change to adapt to this new digital trend? And what new skills do the future leaders, that is us, and young professionals need to build?
See, it's a very big question, Roshan, that from a organizational capability perspective, the See, there is, of course, every organization needs to build a technology DNA, which for many organizations is a very big shift. Yeah, so think about a traditional manufacturing business. For them now to adopt technology is not an easy thing. Yeah, so first and foremost, you need to build a technology DNA. Yeah, the second is this need to move at speed. Yeah, the need to move at speed, and what really hampers that is that you have a lot of controls, you have a lot of levels in any organization. And if you think about why the controls are there, and therefore you end up having many levels in any organization, it is because of risk, because you don't want to take risks. So to succeed in the digital age, you need to have a very different type of a tolerance to risk, which is a very big culture shift for organizations. And the third big thing is, how do you build cross-functional, interdisciplinary teams? Yeah, because the problems in the digital age mostly are cross-functional problems, and enterprises waste too much time throwing ball over the wall, throw it here, from here to there, and there to there. So that takes a lot of time. And if I look at a big difference between the digital natives like Google, Amazon, Apple, or even Flipkart, and the more legacy enterprises, the biggest difference I find is actually in the organization structure. Yeah, that tends to be a very, very big differentiator. So there are many things I can talk about, but these are the three fundamental shifts for our organization: building a technology DNA, moving with speed, and therefore building a very different tolerance to risk. And third is building cross-functional interdisciplinary capabilities.
Okay, thank you so much for answering that. So I request Gaurav Soni if you can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Roshan. Am I audible?
Yeah, Gaurav.
Yes, Gaurav.
So, sir, as you have talked about the digital era, and digital analytics has become quintessential for every business and business professional in this era. So, what are the key most tools which a individual must be excelling in order to get a competitive parity, or if you can suggest some of the tools which we must learn to get a competitive advantage?
See, if your question, Gaurav, is about analytics, now analytics, Gaurav, is not competitive advantage in analytics is not driven through tools. That is a very, very big mistake. Okay, that's a very, very big mistake. See, tools, um, the tools are constantly changing. Okay, tools are constantly changing. So, I had the great fortune of pioneering and building analytics, while I was at McKinsey, and this was 2002, 2003. So, a while back, and I have been very, very closely involved in analytics for the last 20 years. I would perhaps call myself as one of the founding fathers of that industry. So, it used to be, it started with SPSS, it became SAS. And for a longest time, analytics was really about building models. Yeah, if you look at where analytics is today, that whole aspect of building models, my view is that over the next 2-3 years will become much less important, Gaurav. Will become much less important because you have platforms like AWS, the Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and many others, which are already, they're offering analytics platforms which already have built in a lot of these models or the model building capability. Yeah. And it is not very difficult to master these platforms. They are largely idiot proof. Okay. It is not very difficult to master them. And certainly, When you are studying in a MBA in an IIM, MBA from an IIM, I don't think that is the competitive advantage for you. Okay, you need to learn those platforms, but that cannot be a competitive advantage. The competitive advantage is problem solving, understanding, building great problem solving skills, building great problem solving skills. And what does problem solving mean? Problem solving, first and foremost, is about problem identification. Yeah, and in a VUCA world, in a very complex, most situations today are complex. They're not easy to discern. Yeah, the variables are not easy to discern. Nor that ability to size up any situation, any problem which is thrown at you, and able to disaggregate them and get to the root that this is the core problem, and if I solve this problem, then we will really make progress. That, Gaurav, is the most critical skill you need to succeed in the digital age, and specifically in analytics. Specifically in analytics. Yeah, because I've been in my organization in CEDO, we do so much work in analytics, and I see young people constantly being driven by exactly what you said. Okay, tools, and in addition to tools, techniques. That okay, if I learn more sophisticated statistical techniques, I will get to better answers. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You may end up confusing yourself. Yeah. So understand that problem solving is a core skill, and the better you are able to understand the business and the customer, typically your pattern recognition of what the problems are will be better. Yeah. So if you want to build a career in analytics, that is what the problem solving skills and the business understanding is what you need to really focus on. That is one pathway to really succeed in analytics. The other pathway is through technology, through deep technology, not at a superficial level of the tools, through deep technology, because data is exploding. And when you're talking about that massive level of data, that's a computer science problem. Yeah. And if you want to solve that problem, you should probably not be doing a course in business management, you should be doing a master's in computer science. Yeah. So these, to my mind, the space of analytics as it has been defined historically, to my mind, is shrinking because analytics is becoming so big. Yeah, it's a bit of a contradictory statement because it is becoming mainstream. It is becoming mainstream. Yeah. So when I set up analytics 20 years back, McKinsey really pushed me. It said, no, what is this stupid thing? Why are you even trying to set it up? Why are you trying to do it? Do you think, there is something that our consultants will not be able to do that this new service line will do? But today, all of that has become mainstream, whether it's a McKinsey or BCG, Bain or Accenture, PwC, it has become mainstream. Yeah. And it is the problem solving and the business understanding which will be a differentiator. Okay.
Yes, sir. So one more question, if we can take.
I'm happy to take more questions. Yeah, keep going.
Sure, sir.
I think we have 15 more minutes, isn't it? We have till 9:30.
Yes, exactly. So, sir, as you talked about the consulting business, so considering a huge hit that is taken by the industries because of COVID-19, so how the modification in the success metrics has been done compared to the traditional ones to pull the business back on track? Can you just shed some light on this?
It's COVID has been this very strange. It's a very strange animal. So when COVID happened last year, the general sense was that it's going to be, complete doom and gloom from a business perspective. Now, while from a health perspective, in terms of the personal tragedy that is unfolded, it is unprecedented, especially in our country, in India. But from a business perspective, it has generally not been that disastrous. Yeah, it is unbelievable, how most industries have adopted to a new model, a new operating model of which is remote working, working from home, very successfully. So, my business, was almost like, 100% of our people were working in offices. Yeah. And now 100% are working not in offices. And I don't think we had a drop of even 5% of revenue. Yeah. So the businesses generally have adopted very significantly, and that's what you see. That's what you see in the stock market as well. That generally most stock markets are at very high levels, and there is a reason for that. Yeah. Now, what has certainly happened in COVID is that digital has got accelerated massively, massively. So the goals that organization had for digital adoption, digital transformation, what they wanted to achieve over the next 3 to 5 years, they have achieved in 12 months. Yeah, they have achieved in 12 months. So this whole thing about digital has become a much, much bigger deal. And if at all there were some questions, security, cloud, this, that, I generally feel that those questions have gone out of the window because there was no other choice. And there was no other choice, because the only way you could do business was remote, was virtual. Yeah. Yeah. So, but again, the point that we discussed earlier, that the gap between the winners and losers has increased. Yeah. Those who have been able to adapt have shown very high growth rates, and equally, there are many who have not been able to adapt.
Okay, sir, got it. Thank you so much for answering. Now I
I
request
want to take
Robin.
I want to take this question from Himanshu Ahirao, which has come in the chat window. I really, it's one of my favorite topics, that developed countries were already ahead from developing countries. Now, after digitalization, does India have better chances of catching up with developed countries? Absolutely, Himanshu. Absolutely and completely. And my submission is that it's not just about catching up. I think India has a great chance of actually emerging as a winner in the digital age, of actually becoming a digital superpower. Yeah. So if you look at every industrial age, it has led to a disruption in the established world order. Yeah. If you see pre-industrial revolution, India and China were the dominant economic powers globally. Pre-industrial revolution, India had 25-30% of the global GDP, massive number. With the industrial revolution, and it also spurred colonization, the balance of power shifted to Europe. Yeah? With the second industrial revolution, Europe continued, but US started coming up. And in the third industrial revolution, the information age, US completely dominated. Yeah, isn't it? And Europe came down on a relative basis. And I absolutely think in this fourth industrial revolution, in the digital age, there is going to be a new winner. The two most obvious candidates are China and India. Yeah, China seems to be ahead, maybe far ahead. Yeah, but India has a very big advantage, and I will come to that. Digital, by its inherent nature, is about democratization of access. Yeah, there are no boundaries in digital. It's about democratization of access, of data, of knowledge. So just think about it, that all the great content, yeah, which is out there. Now, whether you are in Rajamundry in Andhra Pradesh, or you're in Navsari in Gujarat, or wherever you are, you may be in a small tehsil or taluka, you have the mobile phone, isn't it? You have the mobile phone, all of that great knowledge, content is available to you. Yeah. So that democratization of access is a huge opportunity for a country like India. And a lot of the fundamental, India actually has a lot of the fundamentals for to flourish in the digital age. There is very high smartphone penetration. Yeah. There are whatever 800 million phones in India, which is more than the number of people who have access to sanitation, which is another story. But there is there is deep smartphone penetration. There is probably the lowest cost of data anywhere in the world. Yeah, lowest cost of data. I look at what I pay for data here in the United States and what I was paying in India. It's no comparison. You have this big IT industry. India is the largest, is the leader in the IT services industry. You have that huge base here. You have the Aadhaar stack, yeah, which provides a great stack to build applications. And you have the young, population. You have, whatever 65-70% of the population which is below the age of 35. No country in the world has that kind of an age pyramid. So India really has a huge set of advantages. In some way, China is way ahead, but China, this whole thing about democratization of access is a huge problem there. Yeah? And China doesn't have the age pyramid anymore. So maybe it doesn't need to be one superpower. Maybe there can be multiple superpowers, but certainly there is a great opportunity for India to leapfrog, and to do that, the big thing is going to be entrepreneurship. The big thing is going to be entrepreneurship. It is, how do we create successful entrepreneurs, millions of entrepreneurs. Yeah, millions of entrepreneurs. I think that is the opportunity for the digital age, and that's what I hope many of you here would consider that.
Thank you, sir, for answering that. Now I would request Tanya to ask a question.
Hello, good evening, sir. I'm audible.
Yes, Tanya, yes.
So, sir, my question is regarding the digital transformation that you spoke about. So, I wanted to understand whether that leads to an increase in business, or does it lead to improvement in technical agility for a given company? And also, how does the digital transformation today differ from business transformation?
See, Sana, both, there are two questions that you asked. So a digital transformation, of course, has both an external aspect and an internal aspect. Yeah. So a digital transformation is at one level changing how you engage with the customer. Yeah. So it is about, for example, retail, that from buying products physically to buying them virtually. So that's a customer interface. Yeah. Digital is also about how you operate internally. So it is about automation. It is how do you automate existing processes, which often has been called digitization. Yeah, this word digitization is about digitizing processes. So digital has both an external aspect and an internal aspect. Yeah. Now, if you look at the story maybe 10-15 years back, this notion of digitization was more of an internal aspect. Yeah. But what has really happened in digital over the last 10 years, especially over the last 5 years, it's become a lot more external. So there are both internal and external aspects. So with digital, you would expect to both increase your revenues and reduce costs. Yeah? By offering digital products, services, and engaging with customers digitally, your aim is really revenues. Yeah? And through automation, your aim is efficiency, your aim is cost reduction. So both of those aspects are true. Now, your question about digital transformation and business transformation, they have become really synonymous, Samir. So for most organizations, digital transformation has become the route to business transformation. Yeah. So digital transformation is no more like one aspect of business transformation. See, that's a very old paradigm, and that's a very limited paradigm, because that assumes, when organizations are thinking that way, they are assuming that this thing about digital is technology. And in our business transformation, this is one aspect. Yeah. But it is digital, the entire transformation ends up being a digital transformation. So I shared earlier in my introduction that at Fidelity, I was leading, in addition to being the CEO for India, I was leading strategy and transformation for all of our international business. In effect, that was shifting Fidelity from being the world's largest mutual fund company to being a distribution company. And how do you do that? You do that by setting up this big technology platform. So the digital transformation was the way for a Fidelity to transform itself. Yeah? So it's become so it's a very big shift, that these two words, business transformation and digital transformation have become very synonymous.
Thank you, sir. It was very clear in your explanation. Thank you.
Okay, and so the next question is from Robin Kumar Gupta. So Robin, can you unmute and ask the question?
Good evening, sir. There is a question regarding, like, you talk about the leadership. Like, leadership is going to change, the business scenario is going to change, and we have the work from home scenario. So if we see in the future, like we have a networking is one of the most effective thing that we see in a business scenario. And with the work from home, the networking always will go down, because the interaction with the people and that thing will go down. So will it going to affect the business in the future?
That's a great point, Robin. That's a great point. While businesses have adapted almost dramatically to the work from home situation, there are many aspects that you lose out on. Yeah. Now the existing business and the execution, the delivery of that, you can do well remotely, but new business development, which involves building new relationships, and especially for complex products and services, like my business. So, which is a consulting business, and where typically the client is a CEO or a CXO. It's a complex sales process, and because you build that relationship over a period of time. Yeah, you build trust. What is the basis of business? It is trust. Trust you build over a period of time. So certainly, if without that human touch, there is a challenge in that. The second challenge is around how do you embed culture. So there was a question around organizational transformation, and I mentioned culture in that. The operative word is culture. The culture is a lot more important than strategy. Yeah. How do you now build culture? Culture you build through demonstration, through role modeling, yeah, through happy accidents, yeah, through conversations. And if you're not there, if you're just interacting virtually, where either it is completely on social media, and so it's completely in a make-believe world, or on Zoom when you are generally being very formal, that whole interaction piece becomes very challenging. So I agree with you. My own view is that it's going to be a hybrid model. Yeah, it's going to be a hybrid model, like in from a customer perspective. Companies don't talk about just physical or digital. It has become a lot more omni-channel. That for some things, digital, for many things, digital is better. For some things, the physical interaction still is needed. Yeah, is needed, and that is omni-channel. that is omni-channel. Similarly, from a in terms of working model, my very strong view is that it is going to be a hybrid model. India, we are still, the COVID is still a very big topic. Yeah, so offices have not opened, but here in United States, many companies, some of the largest companies, they have changed their tune very significantly. So JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, all of them have said that please come back to office. If you can't, thank you, bye bye. Yeah, so that is changing. I also want to take Sanjay's question, Sanjay TG, on the chat. It's a fantastic question, that with digital transformation, will there not be a lack in human touch? And this whole thing about personalized sales, and as future managers, how we can approach this issue. It's again built on the question that was asked. It is a very important point. It's a very important point. I'll answer it in two different ways. First is that one of the big opportunities with digital is personalization. Yeah, and that's where data also comes in. Yeah, that with data, you can now identify each customer specifically and very deeply. There was a question about analytics, and analytics is indeed, insights are indeed a very key power in this digital age. So you can understand customers deeply, and you can customize your offerings very specifically for the customer. So instead of becoming depersonalized, there is an opportunity to personalize at a completely different level. So I'll give you an example that, one of my largest clients is Verizon, which is one of the biggest telecom companies in the world. And I think it was 2.5 years back, I asked the head of data science, what is your segmentation strategy? And he said, I have 130 million segments. And I was zapped for a second, but then I realized what he's saying, that they have 130 million customers, because each customer is now a segment of one. Yeah. So digital offers you a very different level of personalization. But at another level, there is this thing about a world which is so driven by data and so driven by machines. There is absolutely a huge value for the human touch. That's, there is a value to intuition, there is a value to the human touch, there is a great value. In fact, you can argue that, okay, once everybody has, all people know how to use data, then potentially everybody, then data may not be a competitive advantage. You could argue that. Yeah. So there is a huge value to human touch, there's a huge value to intuition. There was a question that was asked about what does a successful leader look like? And this, I would say, the ability to manage duality, the ability to manage seemingly different and contradictory forces, the force of data and intuition, machine, man, be able to bring them together, I believe is going to be one of the very key competitive advantage for leaders in the digital age. I'm now 5 minutes late for my meeting, so we will stop here. If there is any one, maybe last question you want me to address, I can do that, but we will need to close this conversation soon.
Sure, sir. So Kunal, can you go ahead with your question?
Thank you so much, Roshan. Hi, sir. Good evening. My question will probably be a short one, so it can be good. So my question is on your slide, the VUCA slide. So what I understood was that B, U, and C are pretty understandable and can be tackled, I think. But the ambiguity part is something that I fail to understand, because the frameworks that we study, the machinery, the theory that we study in MBA, it is always said that our input should always be not ambiguous and free of any bias. So how can we tackle ambiguous situations when we totally feed on non-ambiguous data?
That's a problem. So there's a difference between input and output, Pranal. Yeah, that the world, the world. What does ambiguous mean? Ambiguous means that where the reality is hazy. Yeah, you don't know the reality. It's not easy to describe it as um, 2 + 3 is equal to 5, or this object is a cube, which has got 6 sides. Each side is like 2 inch, and its color is white, and blah blah blah. It's not easy to describe things in those clear terms. Now, what you said is actually a very, very fundamental point, that the world is ambiguous. There is no question in that. Yeah. And but all of our management theories so far assume that the world is linear. Okay, that's a point I made, that the linear versus iterative. If you are trying to tackle a VUCA situation, see, ambiguous is not very different. Volatile, uncertain, complex also have the same kind of aspects as ambiguous has. If that's the world and all of your theories are of a very deterministic linear world, you will fail. You'll fail. Yeah, that's the entire point I'm trying to make. Why is there a 70% failure rate? Yeah. The way most companies today approach strategy is due to failure. If you're trying to have a very, very, very clear, this is what the situation is, and in this situation, this is what my response is, and this is not what I'm going to do for the next 5 years, you will fail. This is in this, Muhammad Ali famously said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Yeah. And that is what happens in the VUCA world all the time. And that is where there is a desperate need to revisit our management fundamentals, and which academicians have no clue of no clue of. They don't understand because they have not faced it. And the business leaders, they are facing it all the time, but they do not have the time to codify it. They do not have the time to. They're busy just battling with this, the situation. Yeah. So it's a very important point. Yeah. And that's why I stress so much on VUCA in all of my conversations, because at least when you become aware, at least your question, once you become aware of it, then you will think about it. A lot of your responses will change, even if you don't know the answer, because there are no right answers. There isn't a cheat sheet of Kunji, right? Kunji, that here is the question and here are the 5-point answers. No, that's not the world we are in. It's a world which is very driven by discovery. It's a world which is driven by experimentation. Discovery and experimentation are very key. That's why when there was a question about tools, I said the key thing is problem solving. And in problem solving, the key thing is problem identification. I really need to go now, friends. Very nice talking to all of you. First time I was, I've spoken at, I would say, most of the IIMs and IITs. First time I was doing it at IIM Sirmaur, so really my pleasure. I hope I can visit you, all of you in person sometime. But my best wishes to all of you. I can, look, I went to IIM Lucknow at a time when it was still a young campus, 94, 96. So I can see that same type of hunger and desire and drive in all of you, which is great to see. So my very best wishes to you. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, sir. So if you mind, can we take 1 or 2 minutes more to close the session with a formal vote of thanks?
Okay. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Priya, I would request Priya to give a formal vote of thanks.
Hi, Roshan. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, Priya.
Yeah. So, sir, thank you so much, for taking out your valuable time to address the students of IIM Sirmaur. And you spoke on a very relevant topic of winning in the digital age that resonated with all of us, with all the students present here. And, rightly said by you, digitalization has touched lives of each of us individually and also in the corporate world at large. And thank you for covering different aspects of digital transformation, like opportunities in digital world, challenges faced, and concepts like VUCA. Thank you again for joining us and sharing your valuable experience and thoughts here with us. Soon, we look forward to collaborating on other corporate and campus engagements too. And I would also like to thank Soumya for coordinating this session. And thank you all the students for joining here. Thank you again.
Priya, and I hope at least some of you get a chance to read my book, Winning in the Digital Age. Okay, thanks. Bye for now.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, students, you can leave the session now.